Oh God, oh jeez, oh God. What's good? My name is Cameron. I'm nervous. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Cameron Champa. Um, yeah, I'm an artist. I make music under the moniker O Sato, O-H space S-A-T-O. I write and draw and do a bunch of cool stuff. So that's me introducing myself. I'm insanely nervous and I don't understand why. But yeah, this video I'm going to be doing 5 albums that make you cry. As you can see right here. I have a little drawing that I did to introduce the subject matter. So, forgive me, I haven't really spoken at all today, so I feel like this is the first time that I'm trying to articulate myself. But this isn't to make you sad. This isn't music to make you, get in your feels or anything like that. It's crying for the sake of emotional expression rather than to remain in sort of like a stagnance of emotionality, if that makes sense, like to help you release. And I think the best form of relief and release comes from a sort of gratitude sort of sadness, like almost like, damn, this thing is so beautiful, but it is so fragile and it's not infinite. It's very much finite. And I think the best kind of art makes you feel this way. It brings you to tears, but it's not something that makes you sad necessarily, because I feel like sadness technically implies defeat or lack of optimism, or maybe, I don't know if this angle's good, man, to be honest. I'm going right here. But I think sadness tends to imply defeat, a lack of optimism, depression, frustration, a funkiness of the soul. And this is more about music you can listen to and really just soak in. I say the reason to watch one of these videos is maybe put it on in the background when you're doing something fun. I like to listen to YouTube videos of people just talking about random subjects, less so about like, oh, this random thing that happened in history or this random fucking thing, more about personal experience and how people grow and how people develop themselves and their personalities and stuff like that, but not like self-improvement content, but just somebody who's talking about something that they care about so much that like you can learn from their perspective, not just like the semantics of their actions or about like some stupid fucking lesson that they're going to teach you. Like, if you want to improve, you gotta work out 3 times a week, whatever the fuck, because that stuff's boring and it's very obvious and we all know that. So that's what I like to do. I like to have something that makes my soul feel a little bit fulfilled and helps me kind of express my personal gratitude through my emotions while I'm doing something that's a little bit relaxing but also a little bit creative. And these are the albums that I'll listen to usually when I'm writing, when I'm drawing, when I'm going on a long walk, sometimes when I'm going to the gym and working out, sometimes when I'm reading a book. It's very enriching and it moves you to tears, and its ability to help you like release some of the tension that you have within yourself, release that stress, and also it fills you up and makes you feel very grateful. So that's what I'm trying to get at here. Okay, let's just get into it because I feel I feel weird. I feel out of it. I don't feel like I'm speaking perfectly, but that's the point of the video, isn't it? It's not supposed to be 100% incredible. I don't know. First album is this collaboration record of Ryuichi Sakamoto and Fennes's, Christian Fennes's, I think that's how his name is pronounced, Fennesz. The album is called Cendre, or Cendre. This is the first time I think I've ever had to pronounce this album in real time, and so I'm definitely experiencing a little bit of difficulty here. So some notes that I wrote down here, got some notes on my little booklet. I said that it plays with texture, there's grain, there's ringing bells, there's distant echoes. This is, I don't want to call it an ambient record. I don't want to do any sort of album or music or art critique here. I don't want to categorize it. I don't want to box it in. But it's definitely, if you're somebody who enjoys maybe Brian Eno's compositions, more specifically Apollo, this is probably up your alley because it's very feels very distant, but also really close. Like there's something happening in the background, but there's also something happening right here. For me, when I think about this album, I think about I was living in this very nice walkable town a couple years ago, and I was just doing a lot of long walks at the end of the day during winter and during summer. Literally almost every single day I was going for an extended walk in this town, over an hour walking, and I would put on music like this. Sometimes I wouldn't listen to anything at all, but this music very much mimics that environment for me in my head, specifically towards the end of the night, because when you're walking in winter, if you start walking at 4 o'clock, it gets dark, 30 minutes into your walk. And that period of the year, when it's winter, it's a little bit cold, a little bit nippy, you feel it start to get colder throughout your first 30 minutes of a walk or whatever. The sky's kind of a dark navy blue. The buildings around you start to fade into that same color, and the windows that you can see people inside, they're like watching TV or having dinner or just relaxing, and like there's a yellow light emanating from the windows. It's just very beautiful. It's a very beautiful composition. And when you go on a nice long walk in a neighborhood or something like that, a place that allows you the ability to just kind of walk endlessly and aimlessly, you notice that beauty it's very consistent throughout. And that was just what I really enjoyed about that town, is that it allowed me the ability to go for a super long walk and just have this similar but also dissimilar composition. And then if I'm listening to music such as this album as well, it's almost just perfectly satisfying to my mind, because it's a great mixture of coziness but also a little bit of like aloneness, like very much an awareness of how alone I was. And if you're the kind of person that likes to go on walks like this, then you'll understand what I'm talking about. I feel like so far this is kind of off to an awkward start, and I don't feel very confident in the things I'm saying right now. But it's okay. We're gonna press on. But this album very much feels like that. It feels like a cold chill, but you're warming yourself up, wearing a jacket, going for this walk. You're kind of looking around. You're feeling at peace. You've done the work that you need to do for the day. And the only thing you're responsible for is just noticing and observing and experiencing and soaking in things. And I've learned recently that that's like a very massive component of adult life that I think a lot of people miss out on, is that you need to build a relationship with the external world, and it has to be less task-oriented and more observation and expression-oriented, where you're soaking up, filling the subconscious, and then releasing. And there's a bunch of different ways in which you can do that. One of which I think is the creation of art, but also the sort of aware and not overstimulated and relaxed consumption of art. This album is kind of a perfect way for you to have that sort of translation, that symbiosis within yourself occur. But yeah, I love how it plays with texture. Ryuichi Sakamoto, if you don't know who he is, he's a pianist, he's a composer. He passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately, due to, I think, esophageal or mouth cancer. So rest in peace to that man. But he was a super intuitive, intelligent, interesting composer. If you've ever seen the movie The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio, him and somebody else, I forget who the other person was, did the score for that movie. If you've ever watched that movie, you understand how well that score suits the film. So yeah, he's a talented fucking guy, and he just has a lot of really interesting music. One of his albums that I really like is this record called Async, where I think it was an experiment for him to combine asynchronous sounds. There's this one song called Walker where it's just a drone, like a and it's the sound of him walking on leaves. And something about that song just like it fills me up, and it brings me to this point of like, wanting to tear up or cry or whatever. And I think that's such a beautiful feeling, and he's achieved that in multiple records, but this is my personal favorite example of it. Cendre by Ryuichi Sakamoto and Fenesz's. It's such a good collaboration. And then Fenesz's, forgive me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, he's also sort of an experimental, sort of nerdy composer who does a lot of guitar work, but he'll run it through a bunch of different interesting sound effects. There's a video where he was doing an interview with Red Bull. I don't think Red Bull does this series anymore, but there was a period of time where they would just like bring artists and have them sit on a couch, and like the most boring interviewer on the fucking planet would just sit with them, and we just burped, and it tastes like the jalapeno chicken sausage I just ate like 20 minutes ago. But yeah, he would sorry, that distracted me. But yeah, Red Bull would have a very boring interviewer sit on a couch with an artist, and they would talk about stuff. There's some really insightful ones with like MF Doom, but also with Mr. Fennes's. And he played this composition that he did, which is an interpretation of the famous Beach Boys song, "Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder," which I like that song a lot, but I like his version even more because it's so weird. And I feel like a lot of people think that there's something wrong with enjoying music like this because it's abnormal, because it's different. People associate those who enjoy this kind of music as being, oh, I need to be different, I need to be different. And sure, that's definitely a component, I think, of my spirit and of other people's spirit, but not in a narcissistic sense. But I think this kind of music is enjoyed not in the fact that it makes you distance from other people, it makes you feel as if you're better or smarter for listening to it. It's that it makes you feel as closely connected to yourself and who you are as possible. And there's kind of a promise in that as well, because he's not making this music to garner a bunch of attention, to get a bunch of money. Like, it's very obviously created from the depths of his soul. And he's been doing this style of composition with guitar, with effects, with kind of slow, melodic, beautiful, sometimes asynchronous, sometimes weird shit. He's been doing that for so long that you can tell it's not a facade, it's not a fad. He's not trying to lie to you, he's not trying to sell you that he's cool. He's just, this is just how he enjoys making music, and I think there's a lot of beauty to that, because I think a lot of music is sold to the public as an escape from themselves, some sort of ideal to aspire to, and I think people that enjoy music like this, that enjoy this sort of weird shit, where they sit down, they absorb it, and they really appreciate it, they're doing it because it teaches them that it's okay to be themselves, and that's also a sustainable thing that you can do in day-to-day life. And I think a weird dynamic that I've experienced throughout my life is that I've always felt as though there is a rift between normal adult shit and the stuff that I like. I like making art, I like exploring, I like adventures, I like all sorts of niche things. I like to go climb trees, I like to go for these long walks, and as people get older, they tend to trend away from that stuff, and they tend to surround themselves with more material comforts, and they tend to live a life that is more expensive to maintain. And for me, I've always wanted to live with less expenses so that I don't have to work as hard to afford my life. Therefore, you have more time and freedom to do the things that you like truly enjoy, that make you feel almost connected to God in a way. Not almost, but yes, connected to God. And that's always been a riff that I've found hard to understand. But as I've gotten older, I've realized, like, no, this is normal. I've just been thinking out the box for a little bit of time. And when I was younger, I was immature. And so I assumed that my proclivities towards enjoying life and going on adventures and making and enjoying art was kind of something that little children did, or somebody that was immature did. But I've noticed that the more distance I create between myself and that, the more distanced from my soul I feel, and the more fucking frustrated and aggressive and annoyed I feel. And so connecting with that has actually healed so much within myself. And there's many ways in which you can kind of iterate and modify your life to suit that aspect of yourself without sacrificing your ability to provide for your family, your ability to be kind and engaging with other people. It's all about a balance. Like, I think Tyler, the Creator, is a bad example, because he's somebody who very much has lived his truth and has lived for himself for a long period of time. But even with this last album, you kind of see it. He's talking a lot about, like, I can't do monogamy, I can't do that. It's because so much of his life is like lived for himself that he's almost like stressing himself out because he just can't connect with other people anymore. And it's like he has everything he could possibly need, but he still feels like agitated and frustrated. And that's because he's missing an aspect of what he needs, because he's, his desire to be different, his desire for fun has taken on a sort of malignant tone and isn't as well-rounded and as adjusted to the expectations of daily life as another person's would be. And I'd much rather make the art such as Fenness's than live the lifestyle that Tyler the Creator does, if that makes sense. And I think that's why I listen to this album, that's why I listen to Fenness's and Ryuichi Sakamoto, is that they've built lives for themselves where they're sustainable. I don't really know what's going on in their day-to-day life, but they're not addicted to drugs. They're not fucking, killing people. They're not getting cheated on by their spouses, I assume. And they just seem to be like well-rounded individuals, but they also allow themselves the luxury of time to do what they like doing, and that is making something this niche and not just a product to be sold to the world, to prove to the world that they can, I don't know, demolish it with their uniqueness or whatever. Anyways, other notes I wrote in here, I wrote importance of sense of place, which we kind of touched on with like the, how I associate this album very much with an environment. And I think albums in general need, in order to make music that you want to listen to, in order to find albums that you want to listen to, there has to be context, always has to be context. And I think the biggest struggle I've found with my music production career is just that building a sense of place and a story and a narrative that goes through each album is difficult unless you're actually living a real experience. My last two albums, I lived very different lifestyles, but I was living in a way that allowed me to completely engage my environment, such as these long walks or having a job or meeting people. Very small and affordable, but connected in real activities. And that kind of stuff allowed me to feel almost like, it's almost like it built a dimension in my head that I could then access when I'm creating art. And it's not just like this contextless McDonald's theme song jingle type shit. I mean, maybe it sounds like that to some people, but to me, when I listen to my albums, I have something to associate it with, and that's what's most important to me. And I think that does come across in the music as well for other people, because there's obviously a confidence behind it. Because I'm not making any compromises. I'm not trying to convince you of a sense of place, because it's very much in my DNA, which is then translated to the art. Okay. I enjoyed this album while reading the book Kokoro, which is actually my favorite book, and I wrote in parentheses, extremely cozy. And also I read Wind Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami while listening to this album towards the end of 2022. I also had a death in the family around this time too, and there's this song Abyss at the very end of the album that I think the title is so suiting for it. It's this sort of like rhythmic descending piano, almost like a ballad. It's like dun 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 dun, whereas like most of the album it's very much just like little blips of piano here and there, and this is like the conclusion. It's almost like this album is the summer and this is the final week before it transitions into fall. And there's a lot of beauty to that. And Abyss really, it helped me kind of like, sorry, there's somebody right downstairs and it's distracting the fuck out of me, and I'm thinking about if they can hear what I'm saying, and it's kind of pissing me off. But whatever. Nevertheless, we persist, even if it's a little bit cringy that they can hear what I'm saying. But Abyss was a great way for me to channel my feelings about that passing. And it's also just a beautiful, moving song. Like, even if you don't immediately associate it with something difficult and dark and worthy of grief, such as you feel what that song is attempting to convey to you, because it's not like a defeat, a lack of optimism, a death. well, for me it's death, but this death didn't feel like the end all be all. It just felt very much like this is something to, for lack of a better word, appreciate. This is something to think about. This is something to understand, rather than this is something that's killing me. It's not a cancer. It's an experience to gain information from, to pray about, to grieve, all that kind of shit. And Abyss very much evokes that feeling where it's like, life goes on. Thank God it goes on. And that was difficult, but now I'm a little bit stronger, But reading these two books, it's funny, I read Kokoro while listening to this album, and one of the songs on this album is called Kokoro. It just makes the experience, it creates an environment for you while you're reading books. I don't know if it's maybe just because of the combination of like a Japanese composer with Japanese authors, and there's sort of like they say the Japanese are very good at capturing light and shadows, and maybe there's a little bit of that in both, that yin yang. But for me, I found that this album is very conducive with reading a book and feeling as though you are fully envisioning and imagining the world that this book is taking place in. And that's when I was just starting to get back into reading too, so it was a really good introduction to it. I wrote, there's a spirituality and godliness to each song, as if you're listening to nature played through piano and distorted electronics. Yeah, and I think that's the main thing I'm attempting to convey with all of these albums we're going to talk about. I still have 4 more after this one, which is crazy. But spirituality is the best emotion that you can feel, because, not to use the same word over and over again, but it's a sense of enrichment rather than a distraction, because depression and anguish and pain are very much like it's almost like you're being burned on your arm and you're doing everything in your power to distract yourself, and so you're kind of like pinching a different part of your body so that you don't feel that burn occurring. And it makes it hard to live, because you know that you're not living in the real world, that you're living very much in a distraction. You're living in a false comprehension of reality, and therefore you're associating reality with failure, and that totally bottoms out a person's ability to feel strong when you associate simplicity with failure. And a sort of spiritual, grieving, hearty, emotional experience that you get from an album like this is totally dissociated from that sort of feeling of defeat, ostracization, and weakness. It's very different. I also wrote sunset, summer, descending ball of light behind endless horizon. Ooh. And yeah, I think I'm going to move on to the next album just because I've been talking for a long time already. But I feel very strongly and very positive about Cendre by Sakamoto, and Fennes's. And I'll link all the albums on Spotify in the description, and I'll write the titles of them as well, just in case you're like, I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about. Because I'm not going to edit this video, because I'm crazy. Number 2, we have Laughing Stock by Talk Talk. This might be my favorite album of all time. And I also, when I first really started getting into it, I was having similar experiences to what I mentioned with this Fennesz's Sakamoto album. I was going for a lot of walks, but during the daytime and during the beginning of the summer when I was living in this new city. And I would walk, there's a bunch of historic buildings and gardens and all these little hidden alleyways and interesting shit to look at. And I was kind of amazed, because part of this city I had never known to exist, even though I lived very close to it when I was younger. And I'd spent time there with friends and stuff. But now that I lived there, I could walk all the streets and I could see all the little secrets, all the little, power lines. I could see all the pieces of dirt in people's gardens. I could see all the crumbs from the kicked up asphalt. I could see the cracks in the street and the layer of slick that covers them. I could see people's basement windows. I could see what kind of things they have in their basements. I could just observe as much as humanly possible. And there was so much to soak up in a very small, compact environment. And for me, at least, this album was a great way to do that, but also it was a great way to introduce the importance of that to my life, because having had that experience, I understand that wherever I live next needs to have that as well, in order for me to feel fulfilled. Because not only is that a free activity, and it's really easy to do, and it's also good for you to go on these walks and enjoy things, and it just like, it keeps your body physically healthy, but also keeps your mind physically healthy. But it allows you to feel as though you are striving for something better. It allows you to feel as though you're able to just enjoy the world around you, and there's nothing pulling you in one direction or pulling you in another direction. You're not enslaved or indebted to anything. You're just, no, this is my kingdom. And I think that's an important feeling for a man, is to feel as though his specific environment is his, even if he doesn't directly own or is lawfully bound to certain objects. It's not about owning material goods. It's not about status. It's not about land. It's just about, I am free to roam. I'm free to explore. I'm free to experience. And there's nothing that I have to do in return. You don't need to work a job fucking 70 hours a week to do what your body needs to keep itself in shape. You know what I mean? Whereas if you're somebody who really cares about these material goods, like, you do need to work that hard in order to make the car payment, in order to put your kids in a private school, whatever the fuck. Lifestyle creep, as they say. And for me, listening to this album, it felt like it has kind of a legendary status. I'm sure if you know anything about music, you've heard about this album. You spent any amount of time on 4chan as like a teenager, you've seen it in their lists. And that's where I first heard about it, was on like the Mew 4chan board, like many years ago. And then I didn't check it out until years later. I don't remember why. I think it was Anthony Fantano made a review on it. I was like, well, if he likes it, maybe I'll like it. But yeah, it's just a good freaking record, because the legendary status it almost makes you go like, well, this isn't like a bunch of pop songs. This isn't a very accessible or like easy to listen to album. It forces you to engage it. It forces you to pay attention and ask yourself, like, what's all this about? You know, for some people, they might listen to it and be like, oh, I'm a little turned off by this because it's not something that I'm used to, or it's not something that's immediately gratifying. But there's still like a huge group of people that are like, damn, I fucking love this album. And you know what I mean? It's like, where does that disconnect exist? Why do I not immediately enjoy it, but why do all these people really appreciate it? And it's not like people that are saying they like it just to come off cool. It's people that are like, dude, no, like, give this a chance because it's so worth your time. And for me, that made me feel a lot more confidence in my music, because I was like, if I just have ambition and passion to create something, and if I just make it as honestly as possible, and I have the right circumstances to allow that honesty to flourish through the art, I don't need a bunch of different fucking software programs. I don't need an expensive keyboard. I don't need to learn how to play guitar. As long as I can just have something to say, and the time to figure out how to translate it, and the strength to keep trying, eventually I will achieve something that connects with at least 5 people in the same way that this album has connected with people. And also, for me, I like a nice continual rhythm, and I like something that's kind of flowing in and out of it, weaving a little bit, and this album is pretty much that throughout the entirety of it. Like, most of the songs, it's just kind of guided by a cymbal being like very much like a pretty easy to understand groove, with very, like, you know, kind of a simple tappy drum fill sort of progression. But then there's all these other elements that are allowed to just kind of be jazzy and freeform and flow in and out of each other. And I just like listening to that kind of shit. So I didn't really have that experience of like, I don't understand this, because it pretty quickly connected with me. I think if I were younger, I wouldn't have been able to connect with it as much, just because it was made in the 90s, and Mark's voice, forgive me if I'm getting his name wrong, rest in peace to him, his voice kind of might have been a turnoff for me, just because it lacked like context that was relatable. And I think people, when they listen to music, they need to relate to the person that's making it. It's very important, because it's almost like It's like a fascination with yourself. It allows you to feel confidence and strength within your specific set of attributes. Like somebody who listens to Sabrina Carpenter sees themselves in Sabrina Carpenter. Somebody that respects fucking Taylor Swift. Here's my theory on Taylor Swift. The reason that she's so beloved by every woman is that she allows every woman, she almost like sold her soul to become a vessel for monetary profit. Like when you look into her eyes, when you see, I had this epiphany when I was looking at a photo of her in a magazine like a month ago. Like her eyes are very much like, join me, come inside of my body, be the soul that overcomes this shell. Like you, no matter what you do or what you care about, as long as you're a woman and you enjoy my music, you can be just like me. You can have this sort of feminine strength that I represent or whatever. And so she's very much like a vessel for the average woman. Not woman, girl. I don't think women really love Taylor Swift that much. I think they tend to, it seems like women tend to like Joni Mitchell or something like that. Somebody who has like a more mature grasp and expression of femininity in the female experience. But Taylor Swift is very much like it's like every little girl wants to be like a pop star, and Taylor Swift is not an interesting person. She doesn't have like some sort of weird quirk that only a specific set of people can relate to. She's very broad, very sweeping, and so you can be Sarah from the suburbs, and you can be Taylor Swift if you just use your imagination, and that's her whole fucking gimmick. And I think with this guy, now that I have the context of being an adult and being somebody who, I've experienced some shit, man. No, but just somebody who's had life experience as an adult man, I think, and somebody who has, I feel like, a pretty good relationship with God and with himself, I can kind of put myself in the shoes of this guy and experience it as though it's only me that's experiencing it, and it's not like a whole band creating this album. So the things I wrote in here, I wrote more great textures. There's like a crunchy screaming guitar. There's wind chimes, stormy bright ride cymbals, watery liquid guitar on new, I forget what it's called. The song that starts with New. I don't know why I'm forgetting it, but it's very like the guitar sounds like, it sounds like somebody's playing it underwater. It's very beautiful. It almost sounds like if you're adding color droplets, color dyes to like a big pool of water to the ocean and the waves are washing them over. I wrote thunderous drums. Great adjectives in here. Adverbs. I wrote there's fantastic songwriting. It sounds like there's a voice from above. It sounds like thunder. It sounds like some booming cloud that's just speaking to you. It's not dependent on structure, on song structure. It's very spontaneous. The most significant parts come through as the singer intends. And it's very obvious and not overthinking flow state experimentation. And I think that's what makes this album so good, is that the rhythm allows for the musicians, the singers, the songwriters to access flow state, because you sort of get hypnotized and you get in a trance when you got a good rhythm going, and then you can kind of just express in little bursts of spontaneity in a flow state. When I think about these songs visually, this is what I wrote here. I said, these songs look like long worms, caterpillars with various spikes and colors and fuzz and poisons. They wiggle across your plane of sound and introduce sonic arrangements like cheetah or zebra print patterns. Cool. And then I also said, the best composition intends to describe life with all of itself, not increase shareholder value, nor play into salesman aesthetic shackles. It explains vastness and diversity with articulate prose. So check that one out. It might help you appreciate jazz a little bit more too. Okay, moving on. Next we got Gorecki's Symphony No. 3. Yeah, classical album, a little bit of opera singing in there. If you check out my second album, Odd Miss Erica, when I took the photo of my hand in the grass for that cover, the album cover, I was listening to this album and I was high out of my mind, and I was sitting on this like grass landing behind my work, and just looking at, there's mountains in the distance, and I was looking at the mountains, and it was a good experience. And for most of the time, like 30 minutes prior to that, I was still high out of my mind, just listening to this album, just like with my eyes closed, resting on the grass. I had just eaten a chicken quesadilla with a bunch of sour cream, and man, I was having a good time for sure. Probably hopped up. I just finished a morning shift at work too, and I was hopped up on caffeine, but I was also a little bit sleep deprived. Anyways, yeah, I remember sitting on grass high, listening with my eyes closed, sun peeking through thin eyelids, little veins blacken my vision. Good memory. I also wrote, this is not music for despair. It does not bring you lower. It is empowerment. To feel is to be human, and feeling should be appreciated, for it connects you to God when it has healing qualities. So, something I've heard people say recently about music is that it's like hypnosis, it's a distraction, and I feel as though a lot of modern music definitely is that, because it's just like television, it's entertainment, and it's very plastic, it's very artificial, and it's used to make you feel like you're having fun, or to make you feel something that you're not actually seeking. It's not actually a feeling you're seeking, it's just a feeling that out of frustration you'd rather have than frustration, something you'd rather have than boredom, like scrolling on your phone, for example. Whereas with real art, with real music, it's a tool that you use to access a part of yourself. It is something that allows you an amount of internal peace. And that sort of internal peace brings forth a lot of subconscious thoughts and helps you overcome a lot of feelings. And these feelings, depression comes from an over buildup of these feelings. You never having the time or the ability to process these feelings. And these feelings are always very normal. And I think a lot of people use music to continue to suppress those feelings, to continue, like even super sad music. It's kind of funny. I was actually at Dunkin' Donuts about a month ago. I walked to Dunkin' Donuts because my car was in the shop, and there's a Dunkin' Donuts like not far from here. And all the music they were playing in there, I sat in there and I was doing a little bit of writing just because I was like, I don't want to walk back now. But all the music that was playing on the speakers in a fucking Dunkin' Donuts was all depressing ass shit. So like, I miss you, girl, you broke my heart. Just like sad, like stuff about sad situations. And it's kind of funny because I feel like in 2012 and 2013 it was the polar opposite. It was just like, let's party. But no matter what, whether it's sad, whether it's happy, whether it's angry, anything, it's all about, it's all the same thing. It's all about suppression with not understanding or growing through whatever you're experiencing, but more attempting to give it some sort of temporary and superficial meaning, like as if there's something, not as if there's something greater to your meaning, but just the fact, I don't know how to fully articulate it, but I just feel like in my core it's not a healthy means of actually learning about what you're capable of. It's very much accepting a servitude, accepting your weakness to the natural order of the world. It's almost like everybody else, or there's the powers that be, there's the bosses, there's the bosses' bosses, so on and so forth. And I'm just a gremlin that has to do the bidding and the work of these people. I am permanently enslaved to the system, and all I need to do is temporarily cope and be comfortable. And I think a lot of entertainment encourages that, because it never allows you to feel for a moment real pain. Because sad music doesn't make you feel real pain. It makes you feel almost, it just makes you feel comfortable with the fact that you're feeling pain, which is not what you want. You want to be able to feel that pain, and you want to be able to understand it, and then you want to understand like its origins. But I think a lot of people assume that once you feel pain, then what comes with that is defeat and subjugation to this sort of structure of elitism that they cannot participate in. Because if we're being honest, a lot of the world is structured to encourage sort of antisocial and psychopathic traits. Those that are inclined to assuming power, to taking power, are also those that are more inclined to being corrupted by the power. They say that power corrupts, but that's only because people that seek like real world power, whether it be political, financial, status-based, are also those that want to be corrupted by it. The average person will never be corrupted by power because they don't actually seek power. Because once you actually have that kind of real, tangible, like fucked up power, and I'm not talking about being a manager of a restaurant, I'm not talking about having a big business or something like that, I'm talking about being a powerful individual. You understand how unsustainable it is, because in the modern world, power is industrialized. And when power is industrialized, when you have it, that means you have a fuckload of people making a lot of really shitty sacrifices to keep you in that position, to keep that position even existent. Because, you know what I mean? I think Elon Musk is a fantastic example. That guy is such a piece of shit. But, what was I trying to say here? Oh yeah, so a lot of people, I think, are aware of that subconsciously, but they are afraid to address it within themselves because if they do address it, it'll make them nihilistic. And there's a lot of people that are nihilistic because of this reality. But you don't have to participate in that game, and you don't have to worry so much about it all the time either. You don't have to keep up with the news. You don't have to be depressed. It's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to be a kind and structured person, and there's a lot of ways in which you can live a worthwhile life without playing by those rules, without sacrificing a large part of your life for the system, and then having to cope with that pain with these sort of like false entertainment realities. And I think this kind of music, like the Gorecki music, it reminds you of the power that you have within yourself. And I'm not talking about that kind of power that we just touched on, but your ability to have control over your life. That's all you want, is the ability to have continual control over your life. And it is possible. And I think that's why it's important to listen to this music, because it encourages you to continue. So here's some more notes that I wrote about that. Here's some more notes I wrote about that. Nervous. I said, I imagine the end of my life surrounded by angels, not dramatic nor cinematic, but as an act of appreciation for both life and its necessary counterpart, death and decay. Yeah, I think this album, it's not really an album. It's like it's 3 parts of one big classical composition, but it definitely makes you think about both life and death. I said you can think about everything all at once with this music. It breathes fire into your belly, slows the present down until you feel your blood and mucus and nose hairs as if for the first and last time. And then I also said, touching on the actual composition itself, the rising and falling glamorous strings, next level female vocal performance, the pacing, how it unpredictably fades in and out, reminds me of a dying patient remembering music and clinging to that memory. Right. But yeah, man, it's some beautiful shit. And don't listen to it while you're going for a fucking drive. Listen to it when you don't have anything else you got to do in your day, and you're just sitting down, you're laying in bed, and you got your eyes closed. Or listen to it when you're going on a nice long walk, because it needs to soak into you. It doesn't need to entertain. It needs to enlighten. It doesn't need to produce a false backdrop. It needs to allow you to see the backdrop that's actually in front of you. If there's a truck barreling towards you, you don't want to have somebody paint on your eyes the view of like a beautiful sunset. You'd much rather be able to see the truck that's coming towards you, and then you turn to your left and there's an actual sunset. Am I right? All right, number 4. I feel like I'm taking way too much time doing this. Animal Collective sung Tongs. I said, there's too much to say about this one. It relates to my past and personal history. My friends and I'm starting to get fucking tired of talking, for the record. I've also been talking for way too long. But yeah, my friends and I used to go to Vermont and listen to this album all the time. And it makes me think of Vermont. And there's this specific place in Glover, Vermont, called the Bread and Puppet Theater and the Bread and Puppet Museum. And it makes me think about that place. This music and that place, the visual art of that place, are very much interconnected. And if you listen to this album and you look at that art, you'll understand why I don't need to explain it. I said it serves as a reminder to view life as real and as a dream. Don't get caught up in memories, expectations, nor ideas. Realize that the future self will wish you could have had this moment in 2025 back. You're so young, inexperienced, and at the very least, alive. You could have been robbed of life, but you're still kicking it, and each new day is a massive gift. I think that's important, the real and as a dream thing, because I just feel like, touching on what I said about the Gorecki album, you need to feel empowered, you need to feel in control, and I think you kind of need to have like an overarching sort of perspective. I don't want to make this overcomplicated. You don't need a bunch of shit in order to make yourself feel good. But in the modern world, there's just so many things like pining for your attention that it's sometimes you do need something to help you kind of cut through the bullshit and see what it is you actually desire and what you desire actually looks like. Because you can have a feeling of what you desire, but it can be attached to no subject and no object. It can just be kind of this endless logistical subjective mess in your brain, and you want it to be attached to points with which there are achievable, tangible steps to acquire such a thing. Like if you need water, like if you're thirsty, you want to know that water is what quenches that thirst. You know what I mean? You can't just be thirsty and be like, I don't know what to fucking do about it, but I know that I'm thirsty, but I don't know what that means. You know, you need to be like, oh, I need water, and there's a convenience store there, and I can buy a bottle of water. So there needs to be steps and results that accompany the need or the desire that you have. And I think just acknowledging how fucking weird this life is a great tool to satisfy that existential thirst. This music is the proverbial water for your existential thirst. Okay. I said, great for a late night drive with good speakers. Don't waste time asking, what will it be like? I don't know what I meant by that. I don't know. But this album, it's fucking great, man. A lot of acoustic guitar. These guys, A.B. Terror and Panda Bear, if you don't know who they are. A.B. Terror, they're both singers from Baltimore. They then ended up in New York City. There's so much lore and history behind like them as people, but if you're not really that interested in this kind of music and you don't find them as figures relatable, they're not people that you're really going to do that much research about, so I'll spare you the bullshit. But they are, for me, they were like my childhood heroes. Like I drew them during class on like my homework and shit. They were just people that I always really aspired to be like, because they taught me at a young age that if you make weird music, you can find an audience. And when you find an audience, it's not that you're going to be revered and loved and seen as transcendent and next level, but you connect with people that have similar interests and tastes. And also, like, being somebody who makes weird fucking music and then goes and performs it in front of an audience who like that, who also give you a response, that's probably just such an optimally fulfilling experience. There's probably nothing like that. You can do all the fucking ketamine you want, but it's not going to be as good as making the weirdest fucking album, putting all this work into this beautiful piece of art, and being like, holy shit, there's 25 people at the very least that really care about it, that are front and center at this concert, that have waited like an hour to come see this, and are fucking here to fully absorb it. Like, dude, probably feels so good. And that's just the kind of thought that I had when listening to this as a kid. It kind of inspired me to continue making art. I don't think I've ever wanted to be an artist as like my profession completely, just because I've never seen it as realistic. But I've always wanted to make art, at the very least, during most of my free time. All right. Fuck, my mouth is dry and my throat hurts, but we're going to move on to the final one. we have Gavin Bryars' Jesus Blood Never Failed Me Yet. This one I'm going to say the least about just because it's pretty self-explanatory. There's the history behind this is there's a recording of a homeless person, I believe from the 70s, singing this little tune to themselves. Jesus' blood never failed me yet. That's what he's singing. And it's on loop for like an hour. This album, it's one song, two songs, because there's also the Sinking of the Titanic, which I think is the B-side. If I'm using that term correctly, I don't fucking know. I don't collect vinyl. But it's like an hour of Jesus' blood never failed me yet. And it just kind of, it loops this this little song that he sung over and over again. And it has this constant, actually, maybe I had something interesting to say, has this constant crescendo, like where more and more instruments with more and more intensity are slowly added atop that recording. And it's just a really good experience. When you listen to it, it just makes you feel something, you know what I mean? It makes you feel aware of history, of people, of all the experiences that other people have had. It makes you want to get off your fucking laptop, go outside, go to a bar, talk to people, just do anything new, live an adventurous in real life, because God knows what the fuck this homeless person from the 70s has seen and experienced. The wisdom that they might have, or the wisdom they might lack. Like, there's just so much out there. And this album kind of, or this song specifically, makes you feel that way. At least for me. Yeah. So I said, it's great if you're going on a walk, which is true for all this shit, but I said, the lute flicks, the slow, breathy drawl of strings with vibrato, the flute and horns falling. It sounds like early morning, looking out a rainy window. So yeah, that's it. That's my little video. I don't want to keep talking because I'm tired and I have to go to the gym, and it's dark out now. But Fennesz and Sakamoto, Cendre, Talk, Laughing Stock, Gorecki, Symphony No. 3, Animal Collective sung Tongs, Gavin Bryars, Jesus' Blood Never Failed Me Yet. Some classical, ambient, experimental, but intentional and purposeful art for you to enjoy. It's not just some fucking, oh, these guys were just fucking around, they were having fun. It's like, no, there's like a real history and story and context and like reason for this art to have existed. And you feel that and you experience that within yourself. And I'm telling you for a fact, if you allow yourself the free time, if you allow yourself the mental clarity, the peace, and the patience to appreciate this art, it'll change something within you. It'll open up a new chapter in your life. Whew, that one tasted a lot like eggs and chicken sausage. Okay, I'm gonna go because I need to drink some water. Bye. Don't forget to listen to Osato on Spotify because damn, that's a good ass album. Odd Mess Erica, and also Home is a Park Bench, 2 albums by Osato, me. Some good shit. Okay.